Alrighty, hello there, everyone. My name is Jimmy Kane. I'm the residential tutoring coordinator for the ISTP peer tutoring program. Tonight, I'm joined by John Battista and Eileen Zhang. They are two peer tutors. If you guys want to say something real quick before we get started, like a little introduction.
So this is actually my first time I'm doing this workshop. I'm pretty excited to share some stuff with you guys. If you guys have any questions, like Jimmy said, please ask. I don't know if you guys can talk, but I know you guys can drop stuff in the chat. So, any type of question related to, the workshop or any general questions about, what we're talking about, please let us know.
And Eileen?
John covered it all. This is my first time as well, but if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. We'll be here all night.
And yes, I can't see who you are. I cannot discern the access ID, but I can't see who signed the sign-in form until after the workshop. That's just in Microsoft Forms, but I can easily check, and I think I'll get like a chat history in the main chat and Q&A. So if I could see your user ID. And also, the reason why it's the first time for them, it's also our first time doing a workshop that is not related to Python. In case you guys have probably seen my emails that go out, we have 8 workshops this semester. About half of them are Python related. That track kind of follows the IST 140, 242, 311 track, just in Python instead. In addition, we have HTML CSS. The next workshop I will be teaching is in 2 weeks, which will cover JavaScript, which kind of builds off of what we learn here. Then my counterpart, Jordan Williard, will be teaching SQL, so kind of following off of IST 210. So if you're like myself, who had it a long time ago and just want a refresher, or if you just want to get a feel for SQL before you take the class, that'd be great. He's a data science major, so you'll kind of get a couple things out of him. And hopefully in the spring semester, I'm working on getting a Golang-C++ workshop going in. So if you just keep track of your email and watch the college's page, you'll be able to see all the workshops we have coming up for this semester and also next one. But anyway, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I don't want to talk about our workshop today. So how I plan for tonight is I'm just going to go into a bit of theory. HTML and CSS, in my opinion, is a bit easier to kind of see first, kind of understand what's going on. John will then take you through some real world examples and do a little bit of coding with you guys. And then we'll kind of give you a couple next steps and websites that are good resources for you guys. So let's get moving. Oh, and one more thing. If you guys have questions, please utilize the Q&A feature. That way, when we reply, or if John or Eileen marks them for me to be said, there's a history so everyone else can see them. If not in chat, it kind of gets lost. And even if I explain a solution to your problem, it would be a little difficult for everyone else to follow along. But anyway, those formalities out of the way, let's get going. So we do have an IDE. I'll relegate that to John. But also, you kind of fulfilled the other 2 requirements just by being here. You have a reliable internet connection if you're here. And basic programming concepts, I mean, if you're in the College of IST, you kind of have those by default. Alrighty, here's a couple other things we're going to be talking about. So let's get into theory. Alrighty, so HTML, what can it do? So HTML can help you make a web page. Now, a website is just a collection of web pages, and there's interactions between them all. But HTML specifically is the structure and the content on the page. So in this case, it would be the text, what can you do in HTML, and then these 2 bullet points here. And consequently, what can you do in CSS? It's the styling of the page. So in this case, it would be the fancy background. It would be the fact that the font is white. The fact that this is, I really don't know, I think this is Hectiva. I don't know, this is some cool fancy background. So the styling of the page or the way it looks. Now, in addition, a web page can be formatted in a couple different ways. There's something called the flexbox model and then also the box model. So I kind of do the second one first. So I kind of have 2 diagrams to kind of show what I'm talking about, and then I'll also go to these 2 web pages here to kind of give you an idea what that looks like in the real world. So the box model kind of works like, I forget, I forget the name of the dolls, but they're Russian dolls where there's one doll that fits inside of another that fits inside of another, and it kind of all kind of works in one narrow space. And that's kind of showed that here with this picture. There's the margin, the border, the padding, and the context. And everything that you would most likely have on your page would fit inside the context or content, sorry. But you kind of define how thick you want all of those boxes to be. Now, the other way is the flex box, which is a little more difficult to put in practice. Everything is relative to one another, whereas on the box model, everything's kind of like, no matter how big your screen is, I want this element to be in this exact space. Whereas with the flex box, it doesn't care how big your screen is that you're looking at. It could be on a smartphone, it could be on a monitor like I'm using today, and it kind of fixes how content shows on the page. So it's a little easier if I just show you 2 examples of what I'm talking about. Give me 1 second here. Share my desktop. So I am going to show 2 websites. First one would be Amazon.com. I mean, everyone is on Amazon a lot, and you can see what I like to purchase. Flexbox would be, is notice how I'm going to start off with my web page like this. Close that. And notice how if I shrink my my user agent or my internet browser, notice how the Amazon's web page responds to that. So as I go bigger, it makes the icons bigger and also moves some things around. As I shrink, you notice that now we just lost 4 of the boxes that were up here. Now we're down to 3. We keep shrinking, we'll probably go down to 2, and then eventually it doesn't change anymore. Now the box model is very stagnant, and I can demonstrate that using, if I can get, there we go. If I go to Craigslist, this is basically only HTML, but notice how when I shrink the page, nothing changes. It kind of stays all in one spot no matter what, and all I have to do to get to the content that's hidden is I scroll over. But just notice how everything's kind of staying in one spot. That's kind of the easiest way I've been able to describe it. John, do you have any other ways of describing it, or kind of
Yeah, I mean, it's a great example you have. Obviously, modern websites now are all responsive to your screen size, right? So, you know, websites don't look the same on your computer as they do your smartphone, and that's where our flex comes in. We want our pages to be responsive, especially nowadays with, you know, all these different screen sizes and all these different use cases. So, you know, obviously Amazon, you know, is going to respond to the size of your screen. So it was definitely a good example.
All right, sweet. All right, now the next thing is super, super important. It is the DOM, or the document object model. So what that relates to is the structure of HTML, or the elements on a page. And really, there's 2 real important reasons in my eyes why you should understand the DOM. The first one is if you want to make your web page interactive, say that you have something hidden, but when the user clicks on a button, you want it to display itself or do something. The DOM is going to be super huge, and I believe John will probably allude to it a little bit. But the DOM is, you can think of it like a tree, where the very base root is just the document itself, and then as we'll have a couple coding examples, so I can point it out to you guys then. But just shows that as we go down, you'll notice these tags, and as you go down, 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 that just kind of relates to the DOM. So here's a tree right here. You have HTML, then the body. Inside the body, there's a heading, and then there's some text and whatnot here. We won't really get into it too much here because that moreover relates to JavaScript, but I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of it now. And then the last thing before I kind of go directly into HTML and CSS is this idea of separations of concerns. So there's multiple ways to write a web page. There's a way where you can have one document, so a single HTML file, but have your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript or Angular or whatever programming framework you're working in be in one single document. And now, as you guys probably in IST have probably experienced in group projects and whatnot, having only one thing that everyone works on is a pain. That's why this is where this idea of separations of concerns comes in, is where you have a separate HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And the way you link those two is say in HTML, here's where my JavaScript file is, here's where my CSS is. One really, the huge benefit to that is it allows you and everyone on your team to work on something at the same time without you all getting bunched up. So today we'll kind of just talk about that a little bit, but in practice, as a lot of websites kind of don't follow that. But for starting out of a programmer, or if you guys are on your own teams, it's kind of best practice to follow that. Alrighty, so let's get into the basics of HTML. And I don't have any pools, but if you want to drop in the chat, has anyone ever looked at HTML, have any base understandings of HTML before I really get started here? That way I kind of know how in depth to talk about it. If you could drop that in the chat, that'd be super helpful. First time. Not since freshman year of high school. I'm familiar with it. First time. Learned back in high school. Okay, you took IST 250. Okay, Sean, this will probably be a bit of a review. I use a lot of stuff I learned from Steve Haynes in 256. And then the last thing I want to ask is how much program experience you guys have. IST 140, you guys know a different language? Okay, but you have some programming experience, okay? Someone who knows a lot, okay, don't know any other programming languages, that's okay. You took C, Java, and Python. You learned Visual Basic, very nice. Okay, I just wanted to check with you guys just so I know how in depth to go. So HTML and CSS are basically completely unique from all languages taught in IST. It looks completely different, and I'll kind of go into it, but the huge idea with HTML is this idea of tags. So I have a couple tags on here. I'll kind of go over them. There's hundreds of them, and they each do something different. But the key thing is that there's an opening tag and a closing tag for most, but not all. So the first one is an A tag. It's a reference tag, so it can be, if you click on login, it may take you to a website. So in this case, according to this tag, it'll take you to psu.edu. There's another tag here for the members only page if you click login, so maybe it takes you to some base page. There's the B tag, which stands for bolding. So if you want this text to be bold inside of on your page, you can do that. One of the main tags for text that you'll be using is a P tag. It stands for paragraph. So if you want to put text somewhere, use that. There's the image tag. This is one of those tags where I said that you don't need an ending tag. Kind of just defines where is this file located, how big do you want it, here's some subtext about it. And then lastly, there's your heading tags. And I don't believe there's a limit. You could probably go up to H10 if you wanted, but H1 is the biggest tag, H2 is a little bit smaller, and it keeps going and going and going down. But just the key thing to remember is that everything is in a tag of some sort. And most, if not all, HTML tags have a start and an end. And they also can be nested inside of one another. So say that you wanted the what to be bolded, you can do this is, have a B tag, and then closing B tag around what is printed, and you can have everything nested inside of one another, which is a huge component of HTML. Next thing, and like most programming languages, there are a way to add a comment, and just like in Java, they can be single or multi-line. It's a little weird. It took me a little bit to realize the syntax for a comment, but it looks like a tag. The only difference is there's an exclamation point, 2 hyphens at the very beginning. You can put whatever the heck you want. You just need to do basically an arrow sign to the right once you're done, and these can be multi-lined. So in this case right here, you don't want this paragraph to be seen. Notice how there's not a closing tag. Maybe it would error out, but this code wouldn't be displayed. Now tables. So one huge way of displaying information is through tables. So if you've been on the tutoring webpage, you probably noticed all the LAs and the tutors are listed in a table. And the way we did that is using the tables feature of HTML. So there's a lot of embeddedness here, and I do have an example on the next slide, but just to give you an idea of what each thing means, The table tag represents the table itself. Now, TR, you can think about it as table row, just defines the row inside. And then these last two are kind of interchangeable. I typically do TD since all the styling would be done through CSS. So try not to use this, but if you wanted to just do something in basic HTML, you could use this. But each of these is kind of defines an element itself. So in this example, say I have a table where I want my first name, last name, and age. There's me, Jimmy Kane. I'm a 5-year-old, and then there's Jordan Williard, who's actually a 21-year-old. How would that HTML actually look? So we first have our table tag. We then have our closing one, and then now everything goes in between. So we define our row, and so that would be starting off with this one right here, which would be first name, last name, age, and then we end the row. There's not going to be anything else. Next then is then me. So then the next row is Jimmy Kane, 5, and then this is a table element, and the row. And then last but not least, we go to Jordan and then say his name and age. Now say that you wanted to leave a tag blank. You don't need to define the last one. So say you don't want age for Jimmy. You just don't have anything here. You just end the row. It'll be blank. Just try to be very careful of that. If you look at our webpage, you'll notice if there's a blank spot, we kind of still make the tag. There's just nothing in between. And this can go on for infinite amounts of time.
Yeah, and just quick, Jimmy, if you want to head back to that real quick.
Yeah.
So as you see, there's like a difference here between TH and TD. So I just want to clear up that TH is table heading. So you can see here that it's bolded. So that'll act a little bit differently versus in the next row, you have just table data. So TD stands for table data. That's just your basic rows and stuff that goes in. And then obviously TH is your heading. So it's going to be bolded, probably a little bit bigger font, stuff like that. And it's important because when you go to style things, you want the heading to have a different tags because you're going to want to do different things with your heading versus just the regular table data.
Sweet. Thank you very much, John. All righty, so now next thing is lists. So say that you want to have a grocery list, just bullet points, say that, I don't know, I'll keep using tutoring because that's kind of our wheelhouse. So say that we wanted to say, hey, here's all the workshops we're gonna have. Well, there's two types of lists, just like if you go in Microsoft Word, there's multiple types. In HTML, they're called the ordered list and unordered list. So an ordered list is, as you see here on the left, if you want a number tallied as you go down, the number increment. So in this case, we have Python level 1, HTML CSS, shameless plug. Next week is our Python level 2. And then after that, in 2 weeks, is our JavaScript workshop, shameless plug. I'll be teaching that one too. The next thing is the unordered list. So if you just wanted bullet items, you can do that as well. And you are able to do both of these at once. So say that we have Python level 1, and then I wanted something to say, hey, here's what we're going to be talking about underneath. You can have an ordered list, an unordered list inside of an ordered list. So i.e. it would go in between these rows here, and vice versa if you really wanted to. And then I kind of just show the tag here. It's really easy to tell which is which. OL, ordered list, and then LI stands for list item, which is the same between these two. And of course, they have an opening and closing tags. Does anyone have any questions thus far? Okay, sick. Alrighty, so now the next thing is classes and IDs. Now, IDs I'll go over first. ID, unique identifier. So say that you wanted a way to say, I want this specific paragraph, this specific photo. I want to be able to manipulate that in some way, shape, or form. This is where you use an ID to uniquely identify either that tag, that image, that specific paragraph, that section, what have you. Now, classes are different than, say, Java, where a class is just a combination of methods and attributes. It's still basically the same idea. Classes are still grouping, but there's not going to be a function tied to it. It kind of just says, hey, here's this broad class. So one way, what's a good way? What's a good example? Back to that Amazon website. Maybe a class would be those boxes that I said were shrinking down, which had the featured products. Maybe their class ID, their class name would be featured products. And there that defines certain attributes like, hey, this picture needs to be this big, this text needs to be this font, it needs to follow this property when the web page gets shrinking down, such things like that. This is again mostly used in HTML and CSS and JavaScript. And I see 2 questions. Can you share the PowerPoint? Yes. So at the very end of the workshop, everyone who's on here will be getting shared the PowerPoint as well as the recording. That'll probably get done tomorrow. I'm just going to look through this, make sure nothing's wrong. Like audio sounds fine. And then I guess I got to do a little bit of editing. That'll probably either come out tomorrow or Wednesday. Couldn't put my info in the link. Yep. We're probably gonna, I'm actually going through this a lot faster than I thought I was. So at the very end, I'll put the PowerPoint back up, or I'll drop it into the chat. That way you guys can just go to the link directly. All good. Okay, and then why use them CSS and JavaScript? Okay, I was getting off my train of thought. And the last thing I want to go over in HTML is going over divs and spans. So divisions, this wasn't how it was taught to me, but I just kind of thought it was a little more easier to understand like how they function. A div tag is similar to a P, where you can set these up anywhere you want. They can be multiple lines, and one great example I just brought up was the feature tag. Back on Amazon, there was that feature window where there's those 4 products. There isn't really a tag that you can say, hey, I want this block right here to have a picture, a text in it, and an image. I don't know if I said that twice. But a div tag is great. You'd say, hey, here's this block of code, and maybe you want to manipulate it a couple times. Maybe you want to style it all the same way, give it its own class, what have you. But a div is a great way to make something that's really custom made. And then spans are, you can think of it like the B tag, or something that's really only going to live inside of another tag. Just one huge note with spans is that they can only be inside of another tag, and they can't cause a new line. And I kind of go over those 2 right here. And then the last thing is to kind of just show you guys what does a basic HTML doc look like. And just notice that everything's symmetrical. So if there's an opening tag, there's going to be a closing tag. There's, of course, could be more things you want to put in here. The one thing I didn't put in this basic HTML doc was, well, how do you reference a CSS style sheet or a JavaScript style sheet? We'll go over that later on as well. But just showing that, just basically what does the beginnings of an HTML document look like? How can I get started? And this is kind of a real basic way to get started. And of course, if you're curious where you're going to put tables, where you're going to put text, where you're going to put the title and whatnot, that goes inside of here, the body. Any questions with that? Okay, sweet. And if you do, I think I'll see a flashing number. Alrighty, now on to CSS. This is going to be a lot simpler. CSS is kind of split up into two parts that you really need to know, is the selector and then the declaration blocks. And CSS also can be applied in multiple ways. So inline refers to inside of an HTML document. You can use what's called the style tag. I kind of alluded to that before. The style tag can be used to reference an external style sheet and say, hey, here's where all my styling is for this HTML doc. It's in this repository somewhere. Embedded, inline, those are not really best practices. Embedded is also like using the B tag, the I for indent, and whatnot like that. Instead of saying, hey, here's how bolded I want the text to be. Here's the color I want bolded text. And then the last thing is using an external style sheet, which is kind of best practice. I believe I later go on to a selector, but I will just talk about it real quick. A selector can be a class, a ID, or a tag. So a brief example would be, say that you want every single thing that's in a paragraph tag, I want it to be Times New Roman, size 12 font. What would that look like? Your selector would be P for the P tag, and then inside of curly braces, you would say, all right, I want the text size to be 12 point. I want the font to be Times New Roman, and I want the color to be black. And there's an example CSS that will apply to all P tags. Or say that I had that specific instance of something and I wanted its color to be red for whatever reason. I wanted it to be in Comic Sans, which is gnarly, to say the least. And then you want it italicized. You could do that also. And the last thing I said was class. And class would be like if you wanted all your featured blocks, I want them to be like 12 by 12 or take up half the page, whatever you want. And here's an example. In this case, it's using the heading tag. So I want all headings to be green. I want it to be highlighted in white. And font weight is just another way of saying, do you want it bolded? Do you want it italicized? If you want it bolded, how much? And that's the example here. And John, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe there's a limit. You could really have as many characteristics as you wanted in here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can do as many as you want. Yeah.
Oh, and the one thing I do know I did not put in the slides is that there is a hierarchy. So think of it like a switch case statement in Java or Python or what have you. Say that you have a condition right here and it fits multiple criteria. So in this case, say we have a heading 2 who also has an ID of tutoring paragraph, sure. And then also is inside of a div. There's a hierarchy. So in this case, depending on where your CSS is, it would first hit the div tag, then it would go to it's a heading, and then next it would hit the ID. So all this CSS above it would apply to it. And there is a way to say, no, I only want this to apply. But just so you all are aware, if you go to practice this on your own, just be aware that that could happen to you. And then here's just a couple other things. So a P tag, a padding. So the orange area represents the space around it. So without it, you would just have 2 paragraphs smashed right next to each other, and it would kind of look like it was as if it was all one thing. Padding's a great way to say, oh, no, here's like even just the littlest bit of space between one paragraph and the next is enough for us to perceive that it's separate. And then margin is just how far away the object is itself from the edge of a document. So the margin would be from here to this bullet point right here.
Yeah, so like the major difference between padding and margin is padding actually makes like the object bigger. Like, so if we had like a paragraph, it would actually create space within the element. So see how I have the orange box and then the green box inside.
Oopsies. I'm sorry about that. I mean,
and then the green box inside. So originally we have that green box, but if we add padding, we're actually expanding that HTML element. While margin, we're actually just pushing it away from each other. So they have different use cases. The thing with padding is that you can't put things inside of like this padded space, versus like a margin. Now you can like put things in between like that margin and then that element there. So those are the 2 major differences.
Sweet. And then I think, John, this is the last slide here before I hand it back to you. But if you're curious of what some real world HTML looks like, here it is. And John, where is this from your project, or did you just grab this off the internet?
No, yeah, this is some stuff from a project that I did. This is kind of what it can start to look like. Yeah, so I guess taking you guys through it, obviously CSS is pretty simple. So on the left we have body, which you just kind of define the element you want to style. So we have body and then our 2 brackets. And then in here, what I'm saying is height 100%, width 100%. That's just saying of the viewing screen, I want my body to encompass the entire screen. Right, and then anything like the overflow Y, there's just some different stuff that is really kind of out of scope. But we have like font family. These are some of the things that you can do where you declare the font family, and then margin top. So that I wanted it some spacing between, you know, where the heading was and above it. So then you just create some spacing, stuff like that. And then on the right, this is good, a good image on the right here. Because this is kind of more of what we'll look at. We have the paragraph tag, and then the word wrap. So that's kind of like the words are trying to go off the page. We can say, all right, let's break the word. I think there's a few other things that we could set there. Maybe we'll take a look at those. Setting the padding, things like text align, the font size. So that's actually, I guess we can cover that. There's a difference between pixels and then there's something called rem. So rem is actually, I forget what the acronym stands for, but it's a relative to the size of the screen. And that's why it kind of can be beneficial to use rem, especially when you're working with a responsive web page, because something that's very big, like a big screen, the rem, which is a relative unit, will actually make things bigger relative to the size of the screen. So that's why you're seeing a lot of rem here. So then, yeah, so if that's the last slide, then I guess I'll take it over from here and I'll show you guys what we'll be doing.
Yeah, there's just one thing I just want to point out real quick is how do you say something's the tag, something's an ID, or something's a class? I don't notice you having an ID, but I can point out
I have a class, yeah.
the dot GIF or dot images just meet or dot bottom is a class of HTML elements that John has. Anything that's not just kind of H3 body or looks like an HTML tag, that represents applying CSS to a tag. And then, like I said, I don't notice it here, but say that there was, the GIF was a specific element, it had an ID. Instead of a period, it'd have a hashtag or a number sign for you older folk.
Yeah.
Yep. Before I hand it over to John, oh, and then the last thing I do want to mention is colors here. There's multiple ways to do colors. So of the base colors like red, blue, orange, green, you can do that instead of specifying the hex value. You can also do RGB, and then there's one other color metric, which escapes me right now. But
hex, it's like hex. It's like that FAAC. I don't really know. I use just there's like a lot of online tools that where you pick from a color wheel and like you just kind of copy and paste it over. That's what I typically do.
Yeah, and there's a couple, I think there's like colors.io. Like while John's going on, I'll probably look,
Yeah,
see
I'll
what
show
the
you guys.
tools I
Yeah, I'll
use.
show them a few cool tools that they can use.
What is your favorite editing program? So for HTML and CSS in Steve Haynes' class, I used Visual Studio Code. We also, since we're all students, you do have access to WebStorm through JetBrains. I haven't used it. That's my goal this semester, is to kind of get out of VS Code and kind of use the more expensive software. But John, what do you program in?
Yeah, VS Code. VS Code's awesome because it's open source and people are able to actually build onto VS Code and create some cool things on there. So yeah, typically use VS Code. But I'm going to show you guys. So are you all good, Jimmy?
Yeah, I should have just given you sharing privileges. Let me know.
Yeah, I should be good to go. Okay, so I'm actually going to show you guys what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to, this is our IST peer tutoring website. So I kind of had to come up with something that we could go through as like a simple example. And I was like, okay, let's just make a clone of this. So this is our official website, and this is what it looks like, right? So we have the date up in the top, our name, our picture. That's me. Hello, me. Go away, me. Then we have my description, and finally, the classes that I tutor. So this is what we're gonna finally, when we're done, we're gonna finish up with this. So I added some things. It's not an exact clone, obviously. I couldn't find some things like the font they were using. I didn't really dig around for it. You can find that type of stuff. But I was able to get a lot of the same colors, but okay, let's go ahead and start now. So for those of you who have Visual Studio Code, this is what I'm going to be using is Visual Studio Code. But for those of you that don't, do not fear. You guys can go to repl.it and you guys can just click start coding, and there's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you can hit create REPL. I'll actually copy this and put it in the chat if anybody needs it. Can I access the chat from here?
Yes, it would be up the top for you. It would be in the 3 dots for
Oh
more.
yeah, shoot. Okay, cool. Where's chat? Okay, well, it's just REPL.it. You guys can see it here. But anyway, so this will kind of give you somewhere you can code and follow along. Don't worry about the JavaScript. Just we're going to work in the index HTML and then the CSS. Okay. So for those of you who are working in Visual Studio Code, we have to create a folder. So what we're going to do is we're going to do, actually click off of here. Let's go to our home page and then let's create our folder. So we'll do new folder and then we'll call it workshop demo. So this is going to be my working space. So this is where my code is going to be. You can put it anywhere you like. I just chose the desktop for ease of access. So now we'll go jump back into here. We'll go to file, open the folder, and then we could see it goes right over to my desktop and we have our workshop demo. So is everybody following along? I can only see the Q&A. I don't know how to get the chat, Jimmy.
It's
Oh,
the
more.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, everybody's good? Good. Okay, so now what we do is we go file, new file. No, it did not. So click in your working directory. Still not working with me. Okay, or you could just click this little thing up here and then this will. So then we'll call this landing dot. People call it index landing, but typically this is what you call the home page, landing.html. Okay. Now, Jimmy kind of talked about it before. There's kind of a starting skeleton with HTML, and actually REPL.it has it. So if we take a look here, it kind of gives you this skeleton with the title, some of the metadata, the HTML script, just things that every page starts off with, right? So a little shortcut in VS Code, I don't know if you guys will have it, is you type exclamation point and you hit enter, and that'll pop everything up for you. So any questions so far? Is anybody lost? Good. Okay, nothing so far. Okay, so if we want to do our little page here, so here actually what we'll do is, and then we'll kind of bring this over to the side. Okay, so we need to start with my name. So I guess like an easy way to start with this is just go H1, right? And then we'll put my name in here. Beautiful. Now the image, right? So we have this image on the website and there's actually a little cheat code we can use to actually grab this. So if you right click on my face, you guys don't have to use my face. I'm not a narcissist. You guys can click on any image on the internet, but we're actually going to do is copy link address. So we'll click on that. And I have it copied, so I'll put it in the chat for you guys so you guys don't have to go find it. So that's my face, and what we're going to do is we're going to type image. So we have to open up our tag, image. And then we do source equals. So this is saying the source, literally, quite literally, the source of our image. Okay. And then we're just going to paste in our image source here. Okay, so. And then in order to close this off, we just do our slash. So not all tags need like the opening closing. Like some you're allowed to just do this and that'll close it off. Okay, so now what do we have? We need my little next heading here, which is IST, and I chose to just go with H3, right? Because it's not our main heading, but it's not too small. It's like somewhere in between, so I just chose H3. And then what I did is I just copy and pasted it over. Again, I'll copy this over for you guys. So then you guys can just copy and paste that into your website. Is everybody following so far? If you guys don't want to copy over my description, you guys can put any text that you want in here. Is everybody following? Yes, good, good, good. Oh, sorry, not this. Whoops. This is just supposed to be IST 140 LA. I'm sorry. Whoops. And then in our paragraph, we're going to put my whole thing here. Sorry. So if you guys just want to fix that. So I got a little ahead of myself. So IST 140 LA is going to be our H3, and then our paragraph is my description. I'll give you guys like a couple seconds to fix that. And then actually, while we're done, or while we kind of hit like a break point here, we can actually open up this file in Google. So we go to our working folder here. I actually don't know how it works in REPL. It should just be able to let you run it, and then it'll show up here, which is probably even easier. But anyway, you just go to the file where you're working, you right click on it, and you hit open with, and you hit Google Chrome, and it should open it up. Okay, for some reason nothing is showing up.
Did you save?
Oh, thanks, Jimmy. You're a beast. Make sure you save first.
That's one huge thing. That's what got me in IST 256. Make sure you save in VS Code. It doesn't automatically save for you.
Because it's not like a Java application that you're running where it automatically saves. So yeah, so this is ugly, obviously. But at least we have something to start with. And I think it's important to show you as we go along so you could kind of see the drastic changes we make as we go. So now what we're going to do next is our list. So I went with another H3 for the next heading because they're the same size, they look relatively the same, and that helps when we're styling, right? So we don't have to keep styling everything again, right? So VS Code auto completes a lot of stuff, especially in HTML, because it's very, very repetitive. And then we'll say can help with the following classes. Now we're going to make our table. Oh, we just made a list. I'm sorry. So we did an unordered list. Okay. And then an unordered list, you have these list items. And my first list item is IST 140. My next list item is IST 242. So yeah, if you guys need any tutoring in any of these classes, now you know. IST 311. And finally, SRA 231. Okay, so now we have our nice little list. We'll save that. Thank you, Jimmy. And then we'll reload. And now we get our list. Yay. It by default has bullets. Recommend any good professors for 242. Fred Fonseca.
I also love Jeff Rimlin. He was, well, those are the professors we had, but I like Jeff Rimlin a lot. But also, if you need any programming help, we'll keep shameless plugging it. We're all peer tutors. I think, well, John, are you in, we're in 412 together. Eileen can help with 240. I think almost all tutors can help with 242. And there's also like 5 LAs on Wednesday and Thursday that come. So if you need help with any Java class, we got you covered.
Yep. So I'm assuming, because I'm not seeing anything in the chat, make sure if you guys are falling behind, please put something in the chat. I'm watching the chat, but I'm assuming everybody's up to where I'm up to right now. And we have our basic layout, very basic, no styling, very, very plain, just blah on the page. And we're going to take this and transform it into this. Okay. How do I copy and paste text? I think you just usually right click and then hit copy and then paste like you normally would. I don't know if you're.
Where are you pasting to and from, Zach?
Yeah, I don't know if you were almost being sarcastic, to be honest.
I can't click paste in the program. Are you in VS Code or are you using the Replit?
Oh, it doesn't let you copy and paste? Really? If you just hit Control V, it should let you.
Also, disclaimer, everything John's programming today is also in our GitHub repo, which we'll be sharing with you guys at the end. So you don't have to copy everything, but it helped me out a lot when I programmed along. We got a question. How to start a text from a new line? I forgot the tag name. How do you start text from a new line? You can use the P tag. That's completely okay. But if you want it to say have everything be done all together, the div tag that I alluded to earlier would be like, say that you wanted the image, John's image, his name, and the courses he can help tutor all in one chunk together so you could do something with it. That's when you'd use the div tag. But if you just wanted to post something on the web page, you can do what John did, which is just use the P.
Yeah, and also there's like a thing in HTML called breakline. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. That will put an extra space in. See? I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to, but okay.
Wait, did
So
that
let's move
answer your
on.
question? Just to be sure.
Yeah. Yes, the BR. Thanks.
Sweet.
Perfecto. Okay. So now we have our shell. Now we're gonna get to the fun stuff, I presume, which is the CSS. So in our little workshop demo folder, we're gonna create a new file. We'll just call it style.css. You REPL.itters already have it. So, and it's already linked for you guys as well. So what we're going to do is the first thing we have to do in our landing pages, we have to link the style sheet to our HTML. Just because it's in the same folder does not mean that they're related to each other. So we have to tell the HTML where our style sheet is. So we say link, we type rel equals, and we're going to say style sheet. So this is telling it the type of link that we're putting in. And then we're going to say href equals, and then the way that this works is we're in our current working directory, style CSS, and then our slash, boom, file save. Okay. Okay, now we're going to start with some basic CSS. Yay. So a little trick I'm going to show you guys is this asterisk, and then this asterisk tag stands for everything on the page. So as you can see in the, go away. Okay. As you can see in the page, we have like this
You just killed off
gray
the share, John.
background. What's up?
You just killed off the
I
share.
did, right? Okay. It keeps getting in my way. It's annoying me. As you can see here, it has like this little gray background. And actually what Jimmy was alluding to before with the color picker, there's actually a Google Chrome extension, which is beautiful. It's called Color Picker. So I literally just went to the website and I hovered over this. It'll show you the color of my face, the color of the text, which is that. Yeah, so pretty cool stuff.
Also, I'm about to drop in the chat. W3 Schools has a color picker. You also could use this one as well if you don't have that extension. So just give me 1 second here. So dropped you guys a couple of resources.
Okay, so now in our style.css, we're going to start with our background color, which is going to be this here, F5, F5, F5. And then our font family is going to be Roboto, condensed, sans serif. Okay, save that. Let's see what we got going on. See, little color change, little font change, no big deal. Okay. Now, Jimmy was talking about divs before. Now, why are divs important? Because I just changed the background of the entire page. But what the website has is it kind of puts me in like this little white box here, right? Puts me in this little white box in the middle of the page. So in order to separate our information that we want moved and styled differently, we put it in a div, right? So we're going to make a div, and we're going to call it container. And we're going to put it right above the body, right? And we're going to say div, and then we're going to say the class is equal to container. And this is an easy way because right, because this is like our container for our information. And then we're just going to put our closing div here. Okay. And now we're going to work on our container in here. So like Jimmy said before, we went over it a little bit. How do we access our container? We say dot container. Now we can start doing some things. So obviously we're not going to sit, right now we're sitting all the way at the top. We want to kind of move down a little bit, right? So we'll go margin top. And we could do anything we want, but I said 100 pixels. Let's save that. Let's refresh. Boom. Moved me down a little bit. That was just to give it some spacing, make it look a little better. And then we also gave it a background color of white. Right? We want a little contrast. That's a good practice for website developing is contrast is very good to grab the user's attention. I know that this background is different color and we're going to fix that. But for now, keep that like that. Now what we want to do is kind of shift it over a little bit. I'm actually going to get rid of this because I don't want to show you. It might look weird. Okay, so we're going to go margin left. Then we're going to go 25%. And then we'll do margin right. 25%. And that's 25% of the view screen. This is good because it is responsive. If we said different values or we gave it a fixed value, it'll act funny when we have different web pages sizes. But with this, it'll work nicely because it's just moving 25% of the screen, regardless of the size, right? Okay. Okay, then we're going to change the color of the font. So color represents the font color. And then I'm going to copy and paste it over, which is hashtag 44446E. Okay, so let's save this and then let's take a look at what we've done so far. Oh, nice. Now I'm centered. Getting better. Getting better. Okay. Okay, we're also going to set some other things here. We're going to do some justify content center, align item center. We're going to do our word wrap. It's not going to be none. We're going to do break word. Break dash word. Beautiful. And then we're going to add some padding around everything. We'll say 10 pixels. Okay. Make sure I got everything. Very good. Okay, and I don't really like the size of my face. My face is a little bit too big. I didn't like it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to change the image size. Okay? We're going to say display block. So I don't know if this is going to. Okay, determines the type of box or boxes that are generated for an element. So there's a few different things that we can do here. Display box. We can do, I think, let's see. I don't know all of them.
Would flex be one of these here too?
Yeah, display flex is one. I think flex, inline block I've used before. Um, there's a bunch. I don't know what all of them do, but we're just gonna do block because it works. And then this is margin. We're gonna do margin 0 auto. I centered it. I know the website didn't, but I thought this is how. So this margin here, if we just do margin, so the first number is the margin that we want up and down, and then the next margin, the next number is gonna dictate our left and right margin, and doing auto will automatically center it. So that's saved. Yeah, so good. Okay, cool. Then we're gonna have padding bottom. So just add some padding on the bottom, 10 pixels.
John, can you go back when you're done that to show where you put the div tag for the
Sure,
container?
sure. So the div here is above the body, in between the head, this closing head tag and the body. It should just kind of wrap everything.
You guys good?
Okay, everybody's good. Where do we put the dig? Okay, cool, cool. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys another trick. So what if we have some styling that we want to apply to different elements? So what we can do is you can go P, comma, H1, comma, H2, comma, H3, comma, UL, comma, LI. So this is going to be applied to all of these elements. We're just going to set our background color to white. Okay. Now let's reload. See? Beautiful. See, now we're nice and centered and pretty. Okay, cool. Okay, moving on. Now we're going to do some work on just the UL tag. We're going to add a list style type of none. Okay. This is just going to get rid of the dots, the bullet points. But let's see let's play around with this a little bit. So instead of none, let's do, I hate how it makes you type it out again. List style type. So we can do circle decimal, low alpha. Let's just pick something random. That's weird. But we don't want anything because the website doesn't have any. So we're just going to do none. You guys can mess around with those if you want. So now we just have floating. Okay, so if you guys look here, we have these lines here, right, that kind of separate everything. So in order to replicate that, we're going to add a list item. We're going to do some styling there. What we're going to do is we're going to add a border top. Okay, border top. And we're going to set it to 1 pixel. That's how thick it is. That's the thickness. And the color of it is going to be hashtag. And then it's D. Okay. And then it's just going to be solid. Okay. Reload that. Now we have our nice lines. Pretty. Okay. And now they're kind of on top of each other. So as you guys would expect, let's add some padding. And we'll do 10 pixels. Not 110, but we'll do 10 pixels. Okay, let's reload this. Ah, pretty. Okay. Nothing
John,
coming.
we do have a question from Anthony. He asks, can you make the image size responsive?
Can you? Of course. Okay, so let's see. So let's say we want to make the max width, let's say 10%, right? So let's see. That makes me really small, right? But if I make the screen bigger, it's going to make the image a little bit bigger. Obviously, that's not how small I want to make my head. Come on now, I get it. Let's do like 25%. We can also use rem. See, that made me a little bit bigger. I'm still a little bit too small. So let's do like, this is also relative to the div that it's in, okay? That's why it's really small. It's not relative to the entire page. So we'll go like half of the, okay? Now that's much better. See, that's responsive. How does that look? You guys like that?
You look fantastic.
Oh God. Okay, cool. So of course we can make anything. So actually, if we don't touch the height, it keeps it auto. So it'll keep the aspect ratio the same. Okay. And I thought I did have, I know I did have, okay, anyway. Okay, we did the list item. Okay, so remember this has this little thing here, right? And I was like, oh gosh, I don't know how to do that. So I kind of did some homework. So at the top of the body here, we're going to put a span, just like Jimmy said. And we're going to put today's date. We'll do 09/21/2020. And I had no idea how to do this. So what I used was the inspector tool. So let me put this here. So I actually went into the website and I was able to find the HTML and the corresponding CSS. So I stole it. And I'm going to show you how to do it. I will show you how to find the code if you guys wish, if you guys want me to, but for now I'll just show you how to do it. So we're going to start with our span, right? Because this is what we're going to want to style very nicely. And we're going to float right. Not left, we're going to float right. Floating right means float as far right as you can, like literally go as far right as possible. Right? Float left would be the opposite. And we're going to set our background color. And I used the other coloring, I don't know how you explain it, the other coloring method, which is RGB, and it's going to be 60, 120, 193. Okay, now let's see what happens when I load this. Okay, that's not pretty, right? That's pretty ugly. So we want the margin right. Sorry, margin dash right to be 0. We want our font color to be white. And we want the display to be inline block. Okay, what does that mean? So that means we want it, if there's other things here, we don't want it to be moved, right? We want it to stay in line, okay? And then we're going to add some margin to it of 0, -10 pixels, 0, and then 0. Okay, see that? And then now that moves that over. And then to just make it a little bit thicker, we'll add some padding, which I stole from the website, of course, is this. So again, this is your, I forget actually what it is, but I think this is left, right, and then up, and then down. That wouldn't really make sense. Let's look it up. So top is, so it goes top, right, bottom, left. Yeah, which is weird how it does that, but okay. Okay, now we're looking good. But I want to add another, div. Why not? Right? Let's do another div. So we can actually, I'll put it in the paragraph. Yeah, right? Yeah, okay. We're gonna do a class here, and we're gonna call it info. Yeah, info. That's fine. Okay. Now we're gonna do some styling further to our paragraph. We're gonna say, we're gonna add a border to it. We're gonna do 2 pixels dotted, and then we're gonna use the same color we used for, okay. Voila. Now, the paragraph still looks a little bit cramped, right? So how do we fix that? Well, we do this thing called line height. Okay. That's going to help a little bit, but still the border's a little bit kind of on top of the thing. So you know what to do. A little padding. Just do 5 pixels. And you've arrived at your destination. Okay? And this is it. I know it's probably a lot, and it was probably a little hard to follow, but we didn't have that much time. And I just wanted to show you guys what's possible with this. Just a little bit of messing around. You know, you guys can do some cool things with this stuff. CSS is very, very powerful. And it's something definitely worth learning if you want to do web development. Is there any questions? Anything that you guys want me to try and add or explore or explain further? Please let me know, because I don't know what you guys know
We're
or don't
about
know.
10 minutes out, guys. So,
Fire away.
but John, can you leave me like 2 minutes? I did want to show inspecting one more time.
Okay, I can run through that. Actually, I'll show them how I found. So I was telling you guys how I stole the code. So I literally, and on any website, Amazon's website, Google, whatever, you can do an expect, right? And this brings up all of the source code. So you can kind of click through here and try and find different things. So we have header. See, now we're getting closer. Aha, this is where I found, see here? This is where I found the CSS. See the inline block, the margin, which I actually had to change for mine. But I had the margin, the padding. I also took some other things from here. Let's try and find some stuff. Text align. I didn't take the font size. Yeah, so you can do some inspect. You can actually hover over things and it'll show you things, and you can see the CSS. What's actually really cool is, so here, let me go back here actually. So I can actually click this, and in real time, I can actually change the CSS. I can change this to left. Not saved, but left, see? And then it moved it. Whoa, right? So you can actually, if you're trying to work through a problem in your CSS, this is a great place to come, because it'll actually not break your code. It won't save it, but it's a great place to view updates in real time. So obviously this was text align, right? So yeah, this is a great place to come and look at code.
And June, to answer your question, they ask, where is a good place to practice HTML and CSS? Well, one of the first projects I did in IST 256 was make my resume, just copy and paste it over, and then it was just strictly HTML. Next, then we added CSS to it, which obviously you're not going to add CSS to a resume, but it at least lets you experiment to see how it is. I guess in general, just find something that you find interesting that no one is ever going to see, or it can be if you wanted to, but that'd be my recommendation. John?
My recommendation is be curious. So just find a website, look something up, make a Instagram clone, just clone things, like I did with this. Like it's just practice, 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 practice. And that's, practice making these headings, right? Making these, drop down lists, see how they expand down. Like this stuff is it's challenging and it takes a lot of effort and time, but if you're really curious, all of the information's out there on the web. Everything. And that's the great thing about HTML is it's been out for so long and it's so supported that any question that you're having, there's 100, 200 people that have had the same issue and there's answers out there. So definitely get curious.
Yeah, and one huge website, you saw John use it before, and I sent it in the chat, is W3 Schools. I mean, basically for any programming language, but especially for HTML and CSS, there's a boatload of stuff on there that they have resources for. And that's actually where I got a couple of the examples for tonight from. So if you're curious, you can just go on their website, and their landing page actually is the HTML tutorial. But John, do you have anything else to add? Because if not, we'll just stay on here for the next 5 minutes if you guys have any questions or whatnot.
Yeah, well, we'll stick around for questions. Is there a way to previous recordings? No.
Yes. So right now, me and my cohort, Jordan, since there's 2 Python workshop level 1s, I think I actually get to teach the second one. We're just going to see which one's better. And then all these workshops by the end of the semester are going to be posted to the website. But then we'll be repeating them next year as well. But for this one, Michelle, specifically, since if you signed in or haven't signed in, which I don't know why I just closed the PowerPoint, that was dumb on my part. If you guys just go to this link and make sure you fill it out, I'll have your emails. That way I can send this out to you guys. So just give me 1 second. Actually, let me find it in chat. It'd probably be a lot simpler than I put it in here somewhere. Here it is. If you guys fill out the chat, this link right here, please tell me you guys see that one.
Yeah, and let us know if this was helpful, what we could have done differently. This was, like we said, this is our first time. This is the first demo I've put together. I tried to keep it simple, but kind of show off some of the things that you could do with it, and I hope it was helpful. And I didn't go too fast, so we had enough time to explain what was going on. Was the PowerPoint more useful? Okay, yes, it was helpful. Was the PowerPoint more helpful? Was the demo more helpful? Send us an email and let us know.
I was following along, and the demo was very helpful. Like the hands-on experience was really good.
Okay, great. Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you felt that way.
I'm kind of giving everyone their permission to talk now, so I apologize. Alrighty, and I think everyone's been given talking permissions. Recommend, and actually, I'm just going to stop the recording here before we keep going. All right, and if you're watching this online, later date, hey, thank you for sticking around. Today's Monday the 21st. Take care, y'all.